I am now ready to start knitting part A of my blanket, which is the tubular hem. The tubular hem is in sector 0, knit with color 1, which is black, in technique 8, and it's knit for 24 rows at stitch size 6.5, 6.5. Here in the book, it shows the cast on 8, and it does show that we're using all the needles and all the jacks, just like we did with our scrap yarn. I'm already threaded. I have black in feeder 1, color 1, and I have red in feeder 2. Since the wire is up in the air, I'm going to pull it down so it's, if it's all the way up in the air, it'll cause a loop on the edge of your knitting. To start, I turn on the power. My console says hardware test. It says please wait. Remember, we've already programmed the console, so it knows we're at row count 0, and we're going to stop at row 22. That is correct. I say enter. We're using all the needles on both beds. That is correct. I'm going to say enter or yes. And again, stop at row 22. Yes, enter. I am in start position, which is to the right of my needles, and by the color changer. So I say enter for yes. It says please wait, set the locks to SX, XX, and knit without yarn so that it can set up the pattern. I do not have any buttons pushed for the feeding eyelets, so it will not pick up any yarn. I now have my scrap yarn in the takedown bar rollers, and I will say something about the rollers. Since all my blankets are knit on the same fabric, I never have to change the rollers, but if you do knit on a different fabric, these little wheels, if you turn them to the right, it tightens the tension. To the left, it loosens the tension. But it always should pull the yarn down so that there are little holes under the needle that the stitch or the color of yarn, the little black bump in this case, is not smack under the needle. That would be too tight, and if it was too tight, it would not allow the stitch to slide off the needle, and you would either get a jam, or you would get jam, meaning your locks would stop at that point, or you would get a drop stitch. We no longer need the strippers, which push the yarns down into the hooks of the needles, because we have the takedown bar that will pull the yarn down into the hooks of the needles. So I take those out. I only used those for my scrap yarn when yarn is not connected to the fabric takedown bar. So checking, I have to put my lever to N, turn to S, X, row counter to 0 on the back bed, N, S, X, which means select the pattern, and now I'm ready to go. So I did everything it said. I say yes, enter. It tells me I'm going to go get 0 feeders. I'm in sector 0, and I'm going to be doing technique 8, which is found in the ROM, or the internal memory of the console. I say go. It now tells me I should program feeder 1. I come over here and I push the button down for feeder 1. It oftentimes pops the feeder up. You do not want it up because the lock will come over and hit it. So push it back down again. Now we're ready to go. I did do feeder 1. So I say yes, enter. It now tells me it's going to go get feeder 1. I say go. It will stop because it wants to make sure you put it on LX for your pattern. Again, you put it to N. I kind of think about that. That's like neutral, so you can shift the gears, lock it into place, LX. And also on the back bed, N, L, X. I am on stitch size 6.5, 6.5, so that is correct. Control Stitches is asking you if you're on the correct stitch size. And my racking handle, which is on the left side of the machine, is in the down position, so that the needles will not clash heads. It allows them to alternate. So I am ready. I say yes. And now it says go get feeder 1. So I say go. The first time it's always a little quirky. It says feeder air because it did not pick up the eyelet. I say yes, and then I hit go again. I do not manually force it to pick up. I use the console. Now it says, do you want to change the stitch size? I don't. So I just say the stitch size is correct, enter, and go. It thinks the cast on is done now, and it doesn't know that I want to do a tubular hem, not just a cast on. It tells me to turn the racking handle back down because for the cast on it told you to put it up, but I didn't do that. It is in the correct position. The cast on is over. It is at the correct stitch size. Just remember, in my case, for my blankets, I always have the racking handle down. So I say enter, go. Notice the position of the black wire. That's about where it should be for easy yarn flow. And again, you regulate that by the little dial up on the tension mask. We are on row 22. So it said program to stop because I am now ready to go to part B, which is my blanket. My blanket is in sector 5 because I am doing the Seabird school logo blanket for my school in Canada. So I say yes. And I say knit sector 5, enter. It is now going to take a little bit of time because that's a big pattern to program pattern 5. Meanwhile, I know that my blanket in sector 5 is done on stitch size 7 on the back bed, 7.5 on the front bed. So for this first row, I changed my stitch size to 7.5. I do not change the back bed because it's only going to be going over and knitting on the front bed. It is knitting a tube, front bed and then back bed. My arrow says it's ready to go. So I say go. It will stop, so I can set the back bed to 7, and then it will tell me that now my blanket in sector 5 is on color 1 and 2. I hold down 1, I push down 2 till I hear the click. I check it. Color 2 will pop up. I push it down. It will start with color 1, but I have to say, yes, it is up in the air, so I push it down again. And I program the color changer, so I say, yes, enter, go. And again, my whole blanket is done on LXLX. My whole blanket is done with the racking handle down. So it is all ready to go to knit my blanket, except I have to tell it how many rows are in the design. I hit rows, and because I want to tell it to stop when the blanket is done. I don't want to put it up on the top one where it says 24. I want to go down so the cursor is on the second one. And checking my pattern. My pattern says I am knitting technique 523, 1400 rows. I will be stopping at row 1422. So I set this at 1422. Now it will tell me that it's going to knit the 1400 rows and stop. I've already knit 22 rows, and so we're ready to go. I say enter. I check my wires that they're all down. The red one is too high in the air for a starting position. I'm going to tighten this a little bit. It was on 1. I'm going to put it to 3 so that it'll hold the yarn down better, and try that. So I'm ready for part B. Go. That's pretty good for red. It is jerking a little bit. I will watch the wire to make sure it doesn't come down too far. Every yarn and every color knits differently. I am now going to stop this section because it's just going to be knitting for 1400 rows. Oh, there's one other thing I should show you is once you have knit with a color, make sure that you let it loose from it was just anchored until you could knit it. Reach up and get the loose ends and cut them off short so that they do not tangle in the here in the takedown bar. Okay, now we're done.